Hi, Samantha. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to get to talk to you.
I'm more excited to talk to you because you have a lot of goodies up your sleeve. And I just want to give a quick shout out to a young lady who you've helped so much. Her name is Natalia Polonis, and she has three children, and she's working on her health and wellness right now. And she's the one who showed your account to me, and I've been all over it, as you noticed. I've been liking like your oldest videos. I went all the way back and just tried to get to know like what your full message is. And it's been amazing getting to know you without speaking with you. So I'm honored to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. It's always so exciting when I get to hear of women that I've helped and um, had a role in impacting them along the way. So it's always exciting.
I have some really interesting questions to ask you, but I'll just let everybody who's watching know that you are a women's wellness coach who focuses on iron's movement in the body, which is so cool because people don't realize how important that is. You help get to the root of issues women are seeing in their health, is what I was trying to say.
It's crazy when we kind of think about the story that we've been fed about our period and how it's something that's really villainized and how we don't want to have it and it's this big issue that we're led to believe in, like if we don't have our menstrual cycle and it's something that we're told is good. Um, and I like to think of things the exact opposite of that. I think everything about our menstrual cycle can be really good. And when we start realizing what is a deviation from the norm, then we can help the body heal.
Well, I think that you are a little bit conspiratorial without being conspiratorial at all because you come with facts, and I'm like, they're doing it on purpose. They're not teaching us on purpose. And you've just like kind of figured it out on your own that women really do lack this perspective because like we're not taught all these things that you discovered, and you discovered them from being pregnant and being told that you're low on iron. And when I heard you say, just because it says your blood is low on iron doesn't mean your body's low on iron, I was just like mind blown. Like perspective is really everything, and you go so deep with it. I asked you if you agreed that women get early menopause because of a lack of protein. And you did somewhat agree, but you had more to add to that. So do you want to elaborate on that a little?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, when we're thinking of protein, protein is so important. I really absolutely agree with that. And if somebody would say, especially a vegan, or they are not getting enough protein in their diet, because animal protein is so important, then absolutely I can see how, perimenopause and menopause can start to be some issues. But there's two mammals that go through menopause, and it's us and whales. So when we think of it like that, there's a connection to the sea. There would have to be in order for it to be us and whales. And iron accumulation in the body can happen in all kinds of tissues, in all nooks and crannies. They're what parasites feast on. So when people do these parasite detoxes and they're not actually getting to the root of moving the iron, then they're allowing the parasites to die off, but the smorgasbord that they were feasting on hasn't gone anywhere. And so when we go through menopause, it's really the accumulation of iron in the ovaries that's triggering that part. So I think that iron accumulation can happen in different tissues. I think there's an energetic component to it as well.
Right.
So I think like if the body was in a defensive mode, if
Yeah.
we have maybe our mother wound or some wound in our womb that we are not wanting to address, then I think the body's going to give us different signals like, hey, this area right here, it actually needs some more love from you.
Yeah.
So I think that can be part of it too, like when we're thinking of PCOS or endometriosis, it's just iron accumulation in the womb and can accumulate in different parts of the body. So when it comes to like menopause and perimenopause, focusing on how iron moves, and the body's going to know where it needs to detox from. Like we might say, well, this organ is the one that needs support and we can support that organ, but at the end of the day, the body, when it feels safe, is going to release it from there. So it's about helping and support the body so it feels safe,
Yeah.
and then it can do that. But I do want to say with your conspiracy theory, I totally agree with. I mean, there's not very many ones that I don't agree with. So
Yay. I love that. And I love that just because it means that your eyes are open and that you're paying attention. Because I struggle with people who don't agree because I'm like, well, what's not to agree with? Like, education seems like such a surface level indoctrination, you know?
I think a lot of it goes back to like when we think about women's health overall, like when we're 13, we're put on birth control, we're told that our heavy periods are, the reason that we have to go on it. Most women don't even go on birth control because they are looking to prevent a pregnancy. They're looking to do it because of the different symptoms that they're having. So rather than addressing the root of the issue, which is the iron accumulation in the body trying to regulate it, we just get medicated.
Yeah.
And then we take that medication for years and years, then try and conceive, and then look at perimenopause and menopause, and women are told that they need hormone replacement therapy. So, I mean, I really think that there is a major issue going on when we are looking at like an attack at women's health and wellness. And it is brought on by people who have no understanding of how the female body works, but are just telling us to medicate ourselves throughout our entire lives. Like women should live longer than men. And part of the reason is one is because we're smarter. And the second is because we have our menstrual cycle. And our menstrual cycle is this superpower that we have been, fed this lie that we need to fear it, that we want it to go away. It's not a good thing. I went for acupuncture and I am 8 months postpartum, and I must have gone around 6 or 7 months postpartum. And she asked me if I was bleeding yet. And I said, no, I wish. And she kind of like smirked. And I was like, I'm probably one of the few people who
Yeah.
I want some of that iron out of my body. And so it is a really beautiful thing. And our bodies are so smart and so intuitive. But, a lot of women struggle with their thyroid. Well, our thyroid is on top of our throat. If we're numbing our body out for our whole life, then what signal do we think the body is going to
Yeah.
start showing us issues with?
Yeah.
So,
Especially for
you know,
those who have
preg-
suppression, right?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And when we think of pregnancy, I had a woman message me and she's like, is it worth it to work with you while I'm pregnant, or is it better when postpartum? And it's like, well, you're about to bring life into this world, and babies aren't all born with the same amount of minerals. We would like to think that they are, but they're not. If somebody was eating McDonald's every single day and then
Oh,
somebody was eating,
that like crushes me when
organic
I see
produce,
that.
yeah, we can't even, they're not even going to be the same, but we like to think that babies are all born equal, and they're not. So
Yeah.
I would say it spans greater than like, I mean, I think of the unborn child who has no say in anything and then is getting this bolus of an iron injection. That's the part that gets me, but I do think that it's women's health overall, that we've just been fed this lie that our bodies are flawed in some way, and they're not.
You know, it's a similar lie to that, which is totally off topic. I've recently discovered that people who have acid reflux, I don't have any acid reflux issues, but they'll go to the doctor and say, I have acid reflux. And the doctor says, oh, that's because you have too much acid in your stomach. So they give them a pill to shut the acid production off. But the problem is actually they don't produce enough acid. It's the complete opposite, which is kind of
Yes.
exactly like what you're saying, which is why I'm calling it all conspiracy and indoctrination, because like that's what they're showing us. So yeah, totally agree with you there. And you wanted to talk more about the emotional side of iron regulation. Can you explain that to me?
On the periodic table, iron is Fe. It's
Okay,
the beginning of fear. So fear and iron go hand in hand. And when we have
interesting.
fears, they are magnetic attractions for one another. So copper is going to be attracted to, copper is where color comes from. So when we see a rainbow, when we see color, that's copper. Copper is in water. Um, all of these beautiful things in life is copper. And when we think of iron, it's like, it's dark, it's like they think of cast iron. And so the emotions that take along with that too also have a role. And so I really think that energetically, that's where things start out. I think that when we have these different emotions and things that we don't digest properly, that's where things really begin. So if you think back to 6 years ago, what happened? Well, that would have just been a magnet for iron accumulation in the tissues. And then when we have people, so part of my platform too is I really don't like talking about the issues that iron can cause, because I think anybody who has half a brain is able to think logically about the things that I'm saying and piece things together. Like, if that's not how the body works, then obviously good things aren't going to come if we're going against how the body works,
Mhm.
and can put two and two together. But if you think back to 6 years ago, that was fear based. And they had people making decisions out of fear. And I would rather have people make decisions out of love and empowerment and choosing decisions that are, helpful for the body. And so even that approach that I take, I think is meant to help release the iron through the way that we speak about it, where it's not something that we need to fear. It's going to be naturally occurring in things. That's totally fine. The issue is that when we are consuming things, and I say consuming things more broadly than just food, but when we are consuming things that our body doesn't need. So whether that's like relationships that we're
Tylenol.
consuming ourselves with, whether that is supplements or food, all of these different things,
Yeah.
there's an emotional component to it. And I think a lot of the time that goes unaddressed because sometimes we can think of that as like woo woo. We just don't really necessarily want to talk about that. Um, but there is absolutely an emotional component that goes along with iron and having it attracted to it.
I think you're absolutely right. Our body works off of different types of signaling, right? And when your central nervous system is not in rest and digest and it's in fight or flight, which is fear, your body's not going to signal properly. Furthermore, one of the things that you taught me so I recently started taking peptides, and there's a connection of GHKCU to copper. And I can't elaborate on that in a scientific way. However, I started taking multiple peptides, one of which was mitochondrial function support. And watching your videos, I was trying to figure out because my I thought my period was drying up. My period would come for like 3 days. It would be so light brown. It wasn't even red anymore. I just turned 4.0 on March 4th. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm just unhealthy and menopause is on its way. And like, that's it. It just is what it is, right? And so I started taking these peptides, and like my period came back like full blown. It is heavy. It is red. It not like too heavy, but like it hasn't been like this for such a long time. And I'm thinking, well, I guess it's the GHKCU, but what your video taught me is that it's actually because I'm supporting my mitochondria, which I didn't know how else to do it without peptides, and I have just found you and all of your information, so I'm excited to like combine everything together. But I'm happy that I figured it out because that must be what it was because my body is obviously I'm course correcting, and the signaling is just everything. And so when we don't have that clear pathway and your body's full of inflammation, the signaling is kind of all over the place. And then even with my own thoughts, well, I must be getting menopause. Those thoughts couldn't have helped my situation, right? So I can see everything, all the aspects that you're talking about, they're very true, I think, and very real because now it's completely different and my thoughts are different and everything is has changed around that. But I think it definitely is because of the mitochondria support.
Yeah, the mitochondria is huge. And when we're thinking of like energy and where energy is coming from, like a lot of people think like whenever I start off with my calls with clients, we'll talk about their symptoms that they're having. Fatigue, I don't have a lot of energy, I have cold hands and cold feet, and that must mean that I don't have iron. And it's like, well, no, your mitochondria can actually hold on to iron. So it basically swells up with all this iron that becomes trapped in it. And
Oh
that's part
my
of the
God.
issue. So our bodies aren't going to be able to produce energy. When we're
It's
talking about the
shocking.
movement of iron, I think it makes sense in the sense like we want it in circulation. And part of the problem is that it can become trapped in the tissues. Well, it can become trapped in the mitochondria too, and there's a different amount of mitochondria throughout the body. So part of the issue is, if women are having their menstrual cycle kind of fade away, I would say fading away, it's like a bell curve, or having too heavy of a period almost represent the same thing. So our mitochondria in the body differ depending on where we're talking about. So like
Okay.
a Joe Blow cell is 500 mitochondria per cell, which sounds like a lot, especially when I think back to like grade 10 science or whatever it was, where they were showing the images of mitochondria in a cell. It was always like one or two. Well, there's 500.
They
And
lied
then when
to
we
us.
I know. And then when we go and look at different parts of the body, so for example, in your liver, there's 2,000 per cell. In your heart, there's 10,000 because,
2,000
it's
mitochondria
constant.
per cell?
That's right.
That's
That's right.
insane.
And in the egg, when it's ready for fertilization, optimally, it has 600,000. So think of the amount of energy that's required, because in each one of those mitochondria are 50,000 copper atoms. And
That's
it's
so
like the
cute.
spark of life, less copper and all of this energy. And so I think if we take a cell that starts off life and we look at that and we go, well, a lot of copper is needed, that's a huge amount of energy production, then it makes it a little bit easier to think of, why don't we have energy? And it's
Hmm.
because we can't make minerals. We can only make hormones. So when women and men are dealing with hormonal balances, it's really a mineral imbalance that it comes down to. So, for example, if we don't have enough copper in the body and there's too much iron that's accumulating, which we don't even have to consume iron to be accumulating iron, because it's been fortified in our food since 1941. So a lot of people are consuming it without even realizing it. Like, I'm really not convinced that the gluten issue with people being celiac, I'm not convinced 100% that that is a gluten issue. I think that has to do with the amount of glyphosate that's sprayed on those
Mm.
crops. And I think that it has to do with the amount of iron fortification and B vitamin fortification. And it goes into the body like the straw that breaks the camel's back, and we're not able to tolerate it anymore. Because, some people, even celiac people, I've heard, some of them can go over to Europe and have no problem. Well, what are they not doing there? They're not fortifying their foods
Different
with
crop.
iron. When we're thinking of things like that, the body is using these minerals in order to try and stay at homeostasis. It wants to stay at balance. So when we're thinking of our menstrual cycle, if our body is giving up having a menstrual cycle, or it's saying, maybe it's saying it's really, really heavy, then we need to be thinking of, why is the body doing that? And in my world, I'm thinking of, well, if the body is giving up its menstrual cycle, then it's saying, I need this copper somewhere else. Like, I need this to keep the heart beating. I need this to keep your liver functioning. So it's going to give up your menstrual cycle because there isn't enough copper to pull from. There's only so many different reserves. We're thinking of things a lot of the time as like this hormonal imbalance, when like anybody with estrogen dominance has too much iron in their tissues, because estrogen is used as a backup mechanism for not having enough of the protein that copper is attached to. So there's all of these different things that I think when we start to think of it, it just makes sense, and it starts to like be these missing pieces to this puzzle that we've been trying to figure out. But we're just not taught that this is how our body functions.
Yeah, no, you figured it out in a really beautiful way, the way you just explained that. It makes sense that your body's just going to take what it needs to feed another area.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's going to give up and say, well, I'm sorry, not that one today. Let's go with something else.
So that brings us to like your message to the world, which is so cute that their bodies are not broken. You figured out the answers to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of funny, actually. Right before I came on here, somebody on TikTok had commented on my page and was saying, this is false information. Women who have heavy menstrual cycles are low in iron. But that is the exact opposite of what the body is trying to do. I mean, we can either look at it one way. We can look at it the way that we've been fed, that our bodies are flawed, that they are out to get us, and that we're having these heavy menstrual cycles because our bodies want us to suffer. Or we can look at it through the sense of our bodies know what they're doing and we just don't understand why it's doing that. So when we have a heavy menstrual cycle, there's a hormone that the body's trying to produce, and it's only produced under two situations. And it's called EPO. It's what doping scandals are all about. And I picture it being
Mm-hmm.
like Lord Farquaad. So I picture Lord Farquaad sitting on top of a little hill, and he has two roles that he's going to say to people. So he turns to one team on the battlefield and he says, produce more red blood cells. And then he turns to the other team and he says, release more iron from the tissues. So EPO can only get to the top of that mountain when we have a hemorrhage or we have heavy blood loss. When women are so consumed, and I totally get it because that was a huge fear of mine in childbirth, being fearful of a hemorrhage. Well, and then they're gobbling down and being pumped full of all this iron. Iron is regulated through blood loss, and the body is very smart. And that was where my journey really started. Was I was told to take iron for a low ferritin, took iron, I had a hemorrhage, and
Yeah.
I was like, this doesn't make any sense because if I was taking the iron, then why would I have this hemorrhage?
As you were talking, it made me again realize how the indoctrination is so crazy. Hashimoto's, it's an autoimmune disease. And so, like what you just said, is exactly what people hear when they're told they have an autoimmune disease. You woke up one day and one of your organs just turned on itself, right? And then they give them a statin or they give them a medicine to take for the rest of their life. And there's a doctor that recently said that these organs, anybody who has an autoimmune disease has to heavily detox from heavy toxins in the body, heavy metals in the body, parasites, or mold. And once you detox the organs from that, you wouldn't be left with the same type of situation to that degree. It's just they're not giving you the right information. They're telling you your body's broken, just like you said. They're telling them, oh, your body just woke up and decided to attack itself, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's it. That's
Yeah.
what most people who get that information, that's what they're told. I've seen it over and over again, and that's what it reminded me of while you were talking. So, again, we keep being thrown back into the conspiracy lane, even though we're trying to get out of it.
And whenever I hear autoimmune, I instantly think of an emotional component. There's some emotion that isn't being released in the body. I think of having too much iron, not having enough copper, and there's definitely emotions that need to be addressed. And something that I found, if we want to kind of go down the conspiracy route, why things make me so passionate, I think my role is to one, listen to my clients and hear them because it's not something that they're used to. And second of all, I like to find patterns. So, if somebody is saying something, I'm like, that's interesting. Like, for example, I had a client the other day on her own. She had taken a huge bolus of whole food vitamin C and supplement. She took about 1,500 milligrams in one go. And she said her urine turned bright orange. I'm like, that's interesting. So that's something that I'm going to look into because, I've never heard of that before. But that to me is something that I would like to have some kind of connection to later on. It's obviously the body detoxing from something. What is that vitamin C binding and pulling out? It's
Interesting. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
I have had two clients who have said this now, which I think is, again, when I say that there's an issue against women, I think I'm putting that delicately, but two women I've had that have worked with me, before they worked with me, they have had abortions because they were told that that is what needed to happen because they weren't able to carry those babies to term. And one of those women was told that she wasn't able to carry her baby anymore, and she was at 20 weeks.
And
And
they
I've had
removed
another,
it.
mhm. And I had another client who had an abortion not as late as that, but still. And whether you're pro or anti-abortion is completely
But they
like
were
like
up.
the pro or the against abortion is like completely off the table in that topic because they are going to their healthcare providers and aren't getting answers as to why they're struggling with their pregnancy. They
That's
don't know
heartbreaking.
why. And then they're being told, just stop the pregnancy and you'll get back to where you were before. And then they're coming to work with me because they aren't back to where they were before. And they're struggling and they're sad because they want to have a baby one day, but they were told that their body couldn't handle it, so they listened. And so I think that that is, an egregious issue. I don't think like that would make sense to anybody, again, whether somebody's pro or against abortion. Just the fact that if people don't have answers as a healthcare provider, then they're saying, well, just remove it. And that's not a solution at the end of the day. And so I do really think that, when we're thinking, and both of those women have had, extreme histamine reactions, we're looking at like autoimmune conditions, all these kinds of things. And it's like, well, what do we think emotionally is going to start popping up for them to have to deal with after having made decisions like that? There's obviously going to be some repressed emotions that are now going to need to be unpacked. And, they're going to wear a lot of that weight when they were making a decision that somebody was telling them. I think that that's going to be a lot more common probably than a lot of women are willing to discuss, because again, one time off, I'm kind of like, okay, I don't know why that would be something that you're being told, but two different women in completely different places means to me that that's a more common thing than most women are probably willing to discuss.
My heart is broken.
Yeah, they're making a decision because they're at their wits' end with their health. They don't know why they're having all of these struggles. They are having, such extreme, sensitivities to things and can't figure it out why. And, they're making a decision that they think is the best choice to make because they're fearful for their own health. So, it totally makes sense when they're explaining why they're making these decisions that they are. But to just leave it like that, I think is just absolutely devastating. And then there's a lot of picking up the pieces afterward. I mean, at the end of the day, the body needs copper. And so when we're thinking of pregnancy, like copper is, think of it as that spark. It's light. It's the beginning of life. It's the amount of energy that's needed in that cell. So at the same time, that's going to be really important when we're pregnant. Part of the issue is too, when we're looking at iron while women are pregnant, we're thinking that they need the same amount of iron in the blood that a non-pregnant woman would have, which is just a complete farce because there was a study with 153,000 women, and the best birthing outcomes, depending on where somebody's from, was 85 or 8.5 to 95 or 9.5. And when I was talking with a midwife in my last pregnancy, she was telling me that in Alberta, their practice is that anybody who doesn't have a hemoglobin above 120 receives an iron infusion. Like, it's just completely, it just doesn't make any sense. And so again, if we're struggling with all these different issues and where we generate energy from doesn't have copper, then how can we expect that we're going to feel great during our pregnancy if our body is lacking in copper? And it's so easy to lack in copper. So there was a study that was done in Canada from 1941 to 1991, and copper was the most depleted out of all of the vegetables at 76%. And it's estimated that in North America, we have lost 85% of our minerals in our soil. So when people are thinking that they're just eating healthy and they're doing things right, they're not even touching what's close to enough, because we have access to approximately 15% of the minerals that we used to have in our food. But a lot of the time we're being told to take vitamin D, which is just garbage, take iron supplements. We're being told to take these like prenatals. It always makes me smile when somebody tells me that they're taking like the best prenatal. It's like, well, the best prenatal belongs in the garbage. So
Yeah, and the best prenatal is found in food.
yeah, so we need these whole food nutrients to help balance out the body. And so one of the doctors that I mentor, I think you'll appreciate this, she was asking me about vitamin D, and she's like, what should I actually be doing if somebody comes to me with a vitamin D of 21? Because there's storage and there's active, and I like to compare it to the, 6 years ago when people were really consumed about having a stockpile of toilet paper. They were, it didn't make any sense. Well, it doesn't make any sense to stockpile vitamin D in your liver and then, it only needing so much in the active form. So I said, if it's above 21, you tell them, or if it's 21, you tell them, great job, that's good. And she goes, I bet it has something to do with I said to her, I'm really not sure when it changed, but I know that the ranges essentially just kind of went up overnight for vitamin D. I don't know why this bandwagon of having all this vitamin D is a good thing. And she said, I bet you it has something to do with the same pattern as statins. So she worked for Big Pharma and worked for them when they were rolling out statins. And what they had done was 3 years before statins, they had the ranges changed for cholesterol so that they were lowered. So they didn't
Yeah.
have to make people sick. They just had the ranges that were optimal changed so that more people will qualify for needing a statin.
Yeah.
And then 3 years after more people needed them, then they rolled out the statins. So I think the same concept applies when we're thinking of vitamin D because a lot of these people think that that's the bee's knees. I think vitamin A is, critical, but I would never tell anybody to take a vitamin A only supplement. I would talk about whole food sources of vitamin A that are
Yeah.
rich in it because it's not just one nutrient. There is a blend of them and they depend on one another for proper absorption and to be used effectively in the body.
I think I watched a video where you had a similar conversation as well when they started prescribing something because it became prescribable, right? And that's when it
That's right.
blew up on the market. Was it vitamin D that they were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. So they do that with pretty much everything.
Yes, yes, and they change, and like a lot of people will be, well, there's lots of research around vitamin D, and I feel like it's been made to be confusing.
Hmm.
Where there was somebody on a podcast, I wish I would have written down who it was, but he was working in the ER again 6 years ago, and they were noticing that people had good levels of vitamin D that were healthy and that weren't struggling with it. So they were taking the people who were sick and they were giving them vitamin D, thinking that that was going to be the solution, but they found that it wasn't making any change. And so I think that that's a huge part of it is when we're talking about like the body needs copper, the body needs vitamin A, they need these different nutrients to move iron, but we really want to get it from as natural of sources as possible
Yeah.
because there's other things, there's even energetics that are happening with all of those things that we know nothing about and that are helping heal the body.
Your one thing that you would change in this world would solve a lot of that, which is what you talked about, restoring the soil to optimal levels for humanity and to make it so that they can never make those chemicals again, and world peace, which was so cute. But you're absolutely right, because a lot of the things that you're talking about now, like if our food wasn't so depleted, people wouldn't think they needed, right? So they created the problem, they depleted the soil, and so they created the problem for us to need these supplements, but we don't actually need the supplements. We just need mineral dense whole foods.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is like there's, I'm quite particular over the supplements that I will recommend to people because I think that we can get really great nutrients from like whole food supplements.
Hmm.
But like if we're just going into Shoppers and going and buying supplements, like whatever you've picked up, just put it back. Like
Yeah, yeah.
all
They're
of
not
those options are
bioavailable.
no, no. And so many of the companies too, like cod liver oil options, fish oil options, I mean, like even you can go into like natural stores and they've got all of these things that are touted as being natural and they're not. They're
If you
not
look at the
natural at all.
ingredients, it's not. There's even
No.
apps like I love Ingrid for ingredients and Yucca for some foods. And it's just like, it's right there. The ingredients are there. You can't read them. You can't pronounce them. You shouldn't eat them. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why people have allowed
Yes.
it to get this bad. Like it's bad.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the things that you said that you wanted to do was that you'd love to change the world through empowering women, and explaining how their body works. And my queen, you are doing that. So I thought that that was cute, that that was something that you're like, I want to do that. I'm like, you do that, and you're literally changing lives. Like my girlfriend was like, I love this woman. You have to check her out. And then I did. I'm like, yeah, I love her too. And I'm not
Oh,
trying to have a
thank you.
baby. It's just knowledge is power, right? Like
Hmm.
all women need this information, whether they're trying to get pregnant or not. But like I said, I have a lot of friends that have children, and I don't know the extent of things that they're going through. So I'm just really happy that they'll be able to find you through this conversation. What's the deal with Rh blood and why is it so rare?
So the blood types have to do with, I mean, if you look back, like O blood being the most common, and then kind of how we've evolved over time, going down that route when you're talking about like AB negative and things like that. I have been asked not super frequently about the Rh negative because when women are pregnant, then they're told that they need a shot for it. That wasn't something that I ever experienced, so it wasn't something that I took like a huge deep dive down.
Mhm.
But I mean, from I would say like a more skeptical standpoint that I kind of take on things is my question is like, how have we evolved all of this time and done so without a shot? And then all of a sudden, within, maybe the last 100 years or so, why is it that we would need a shot? Why would it be that, our there's some type of flaw in the body where we're just going to not be able to carry this pregnancy or whatever kind
Does
of narrative
everyone
they
get
give.
told that they need that shot that's pregnant?
It'll be with like the Rh negative shot. They'll say, well, if you're Rh negative and your partner is, I feel like they say it if they're negative and not positive. Maybe they say it if they're positive. I can't
Mm,
remember now,
okay.
but they tell them that there's like a shot that they need to get to help with it, which just confuses me intuitively. I haven't looked into it too much, but I'm not exactly sure. I would imagine that it has to do with like the evolution over time, because blood started out as O blood and has slowly kind of progressed, but kind of how it functions, I'm not exactly sure. If I were to take a guess and say that over time we've evolved with less copper, I've shot in the dark at it,
Okay.
but I wouldn't be entirely sure because I would also wonder about like people who have hemochromatosis, like what the kind of amount of people that have that would have any kind of like different types of blood and things like that. That would actually be kind of interesting to look into.
If you do, let me know.
Yeah.
This question is a little bit different. It's away from blood, but what is your opinion on giving birth with dolphins?
Women give birth with dolphins?
Yes, yes, like in the water because of the
Oh,
sound frequency. Have you looked into that?
I've never heard that.
Oh,
No.
really? So I've
No.
like in my dream world, because I'm a Pisces, like if money ain't a thing and like, we could do anything we wanted,
Yeah.
I have always thought that I wanted to do that. Apparently, the sound frequency, I forget what it's called, that diet. How do they communicate? Um, I can't remember the word right now.
I
Something
mean I can hear it in my head.
ultrasonic something. I can't remember. Um,
Yeah.
the way that they communicate when the baby's in the womb and you're under the water, it like does something to the baby's frequency, and apparently they come out like super intelligent. And which is why the government has
Huh.
made it illegal for women to give birth with dolphins now because it like used to be a thing. So obviously, I think like if Elon Musk is human, then his parents may have done something like that with him. I'm just joking, but it is something that I think your opinion, like if you researched that, I would love for you to come back on the dose of Dia and give me a little dose of that, whatever you come up with, because I feel like your mind would piece some of that together in a very fascinating way.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I mean, it wouldn't be something that I would be like, don't do that. I think it would be pretty cool.
So obviously there's safety in it, right? Like you're not giving birth and the dolphin is like right there, can touch the baby. You are in a cage. It's just being in the
Yeah.
water. with the dolphins also in the water and then giving birth in the water.
I'm picturing like a little reservoir that they would have like that you would birth in, and
Hmm.
then like, there would be this other space that the dolphin would
That's
be in.
right.
Because I
Yeah.
mean, we are animals,
Yeah,
and other animals can sense when we're birthing. So, it would be a pretty cool experience.
definitely.
I would say that.
It's a
So,
fun rabbit hole, that's for sure. Especially because they've made it illegal, I'm pretty sure in most.
yeah.
Yeah, and so when they do that, it makes us kind of want to look into it. So I just
Hmm.
kind of thought I would throw that out there.
Like I really believe in the, intuitive nature of us as women and as our body's ability to heal, and that our bodies know what they're doing way more than we give them credit for. And we weren't designed flawed. We weren't put on this earth with mistakes. Um, and I think that that's just you know, a way more beautiful way of looking at the world, that things were designed the right way. We just don't understand. And that doesn't mean that it's flawed. It just means it's a little bit more humbling when we look at it that way.
That's right. We're not broken. Before
Hmm.
you tell everyone where they can find you, you have a free PDF that you offer on your site, and that is about the minerals in the body.
Yeah, so I just actually, I think it got uploaded today, but that one's on bloodletting. So the importance of removing iron, the
Okay.
importance of bloodletting, and talking about, I mean, things that have been banned, like there aren't therapeutic phlebotomies in Canada. So,
Okay.
we have to question why is that the case? Why do other countries have therapeutic phlebotomies, but in Canada we have to
Hmm.
do a blood donation? Um, but really, really important to bloodlet, especially with the amount of iron that I think is actually in our tissues. So, so important. So, I have one on that. I have one on supplements. I have one on the fundamentals of iron's movement and what that exactly means. I
Okay.
have some on, things that can disrupt iron's movement. I have a whole bunch of free things that people can go ahead and download.
Okay. And where can people find you?
So I would say the school community is one of the best ways. So that's where I have all the PDFs available for download. I was having it where if people signed up for my email list, then they would get it emailed to them, but there was always issues when I would update them, or sometimes it doesn't work. So the school community is way, way better. So that's Wellness and Womb on school. But if they head to wellnessandwomb.com, then it'll have access to where they can find me on everything, whether that's TikTok, if they're a TikTok person, or Instagram. It'll have links to everything and get them to where they need to go from there.
Amazing. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I will love you and leave you. I appreciate you so much for your time and knowledge.
I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.